one of the things that Wing Chun people love to say is that Wing Chun is a scientific style. And that's actually not true. Not because you can't retrofit science onto it. In fact, that's precisely what Ip Man did. It's more the fact that Wing Chun was an organically derived local style, the same way that pretty much every other martial art is. These are emergent phenomena that grow out of basically a problem-solving need. That's all it is just systematizing a problem-solving matrix, for lack of a better term, to help solve a certain problem, in our case, combat. Let's start with this. I don't read to you guys that often, but creation of Wing Chun is kind of like the informational Wing Chun Bible, right? You're not going to find currently, more information may come later, but you're not going to find a more down-to-earth academic approach to the actual documentation of where this style comes from and everything. This is not a technical book in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't go over the forms of the techniques or anything. It's purely social, cultural, political, and who's who kind of context of where this style comes from and what we know and what we don't know, how much is stories and speculation. And through their research and like literally digging into newspapers and interviewing people who were there, who are still alive, of course, and all of that, the book is heavily annotated. Definitely suggest you get a copy. I'll try to find an affiliate link that you guys can go and pick one up if you haven't got one already. But here about less than halfway through the book, there's a small paragraph here. And so bear with me, I'm not the best public reader, but whether through direct study or social osmosis, Ip Man seems to have absorbed many of the ideas embedded in the Guoshu movement's critique of contemporary hand combat. When he began to teach Wing Chun professionally, he immediately jettisoned the traditional vocabulary that was used to describe the directions and forces. Terms like Bagua and the five elements were replaced with ideas drawn from physics. Extraneous movements and concepts that seemed to serve no purpose were dropped altogether. Mysticism and even the culturally common concept of qi has little place in Wing Chun. His children consistently described the contempt in which he held other martial artists who claimed to have learned their styles from wandering monks or nuns. He had no time for stories of secret lineages or quasi-magical techniques passed on only to a single disciple. He saw all of these things as a form of psychological compensation for those who lacked faith in their actual skills. And that entire paragraph is footnoted, footnote number 91. I'm not even going to go look it up right now because I'm not going to do all that on camera. You can find this in the book. I suggest you pick up the book. That was the very end of page 163 and then the top of 164. Just a single paragraph. And these guys are very, very serious academics, and they have dug into all of this research and everything. And so we know for a fact that Wing Chun was not developed as a scientific system. Science was retrofitted onto it, just like you can do with any other style. You should always kind of retrofit, what we know is correct and everything onto things that were just normally emergent phenomena. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But to say that Wing Chun is a scientific style is to try to say that it was designed in a scientific fashion with equations and slaving over making sure that everything like mathematically worked and everything, and it just wasn't that. It was more like a scientific refinement of an organic style. What we do in Wing Chun, is like, it's very logical to me. It makes sense. There's a reason that I teach it as the core of my mixed martial arts program. It actually makes sense. The techniques work, the ideas work. You just have to play with them a little bit. And here's the thing. We know more scientifically now than Ip Man did in the 50s, right? And honestly, he would have been working on this prior to that, because keep in mind, the 50s was the start of the Hong Kong era. And Ip Man had been learning all his life, right? He had started fairly young. And again, they mentioned, right, he was extremely well educated, for the times. His family was wealthy. And he was part of the Kuomintang, which was the political party that created Sanda, right? And the idea was to kind of bring everything up to the modern world. And so there was this, like, let's keep everything culturally ours, but at the same time bring it up to scientific and modern mathematical, technological standards. And so it was just kind of the right time, right place kind of thing. And, so can we, again, like back end onto Wing Chun, certain scientific ideas and go, oh, yes, this is correct because this is how physics work, or this is how anatomy works, this is how biology works, this is how the psychology of fighting works. Yeah, of course we can do all that. And you can do that with a lot of other styles. And that is to say that Wing Chun is no more scientific than any other kind of style. It's more the fact that the origin of our sublineage of Wing Chun, right, of Ip Man Wing Chun, and I say sublineage, I mean, it's our lineage, right, but sublineage in the sense that, we're all part of the branches that stem off of Ip Man Wing Chun specific, but there are mainland styles from Foshan that still do things the original way, and that's why they look and feel different, because Ip Man changed things. And we know that Ip Man students change things. And some of those changes are for the better, and some of those changes may be for the worse. And that's, for the context of combat and efficacy to decide. But when we look at this, right, is anything that we're doing particularly scientific? Is anything, white lab coat and mathematical equations? And the answer is not any more so than really anything else. One of the things that really bugs me that people will say is like, well, everybody uses the force equals mass times acceleration, but really they're actually just talking about momentum, which is mass times velocity. Small difference, but serious difference. And, people go, oh, we don't use momentum, we use kinetic energy, because, and it's like, oh, you like kinetic energy better because it consistently yields a 4 times greater result than the calculation for momentum. That's all. It literally is just 4x the number for momentum, and you can do this consistently, right? Do the calculation for momentum. It's super easy. And then multiply it times 4, then go and look up the equation for kinetic energy and do it out, and you're going to see it's just a 4x, and that's it. People who don't understand science, who don't understand mathematics, will go, well, we use kinetic energy, we don't use momentum, because they have this idea that momentum is passive force being dragged along by, like whipping the body and cocking the arm back and throwing big movements, and oh, we don't use momentum, we use kinetic energy. It's like, no. Kinetic energy is a property of things with momentum. It just is. And momentum doesn't tell you about kinetic energy much, and kinetic energy doesn't tell you about momentum much, other than the fact that they're mathematically correlated. But they're different properties, and you don't get to pick one over the other. You have them, and that's what you have. It's more the sense of understanding how the body works, how to maximize using those physics properties of things like impact forces, which is actually more important than just straight up momentum or force, and is even more important than kinetic energy, because we actually need to know what's happening in the moment of the collision for striking. We need to know things like leverage for any of the chin na, for the joint locking and any kind of holds and structure breaking and stuff like that. You want to understand that stuff. It's important to understand that stuff. But that's back-ending it on top of the thing that already exists, right? Generally speaking, when people are learning how to fight, they're really kind of just tinkering from the bottom up, going, oh, if I do it this way, this works. And if I do it that way, that works. And, oh, how'd you get that to work? That looked like it was effortless. Versus, oh, man, you look like you really had to struggle with that. And then you can back-end onto it, and back-ending onto it with the equations and with the understanding helps you kind of refine and kind of home in on it and try to make sure that you get a more reliable, precise result. But generally speaking, you don't start with equations. You don't start with, how do I use this physics principle? You don't. You find out how to use science to refine what you are already organically and emergently doing. So yes, is Wing Chun scientific? I mean, in the broadest sense of things, yeah, sure. But at the same time, it's also just as scientific as any other martial art, because all we're talking about is retrofitting. We're not talking about ground up work. So I will leave you with that. Please, support Judkins and Nilsson and get the book and look at their blog and everything, because they've got a lot of less formal stuff on the blog. I will put these links in the Substack. Really, really good stuff. If you are a Wing Chun person or you're interested in Wing Chun, get a hold of this stuff, because this stuff is the direction that we need to be going with all of this, because we want stuff to be accurate and real. You can have your stories and mysticism on the other side of it, but when it comes to your actual practice, let's build stuff around stuff that we know can consistently and reliably work. All right, I will talk to you guys later. Good journey. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Check us out on our other socials, and please head over to blacksunboxing.com to get a little more info, including how to contact us. Furthermore, if you are in the Phoenix area, please feel free to stop in, say hi, join in for a class, whatever. Also, if you ever see us cite sources or just for additional content, please check out our Substack. That is where we put all of the sources we use in our videos and is a major part of this. Plus, it serves as a membership platform for long distance learning and for people who would like to support us but aren't local. We would greatly appreciate it if you signed up. Even just the free membership helps us out a lot. All right, I will see you guys in the next video. Good journey.